Where he was losing most of his time relative to David and struggling was actually in the slow corners. In all the high-speed corners, in Brazil and bits and pieces, he was right there with David, even sometimes quicker. But he was just having trouble getting his head round how to get the best performance out of the car, and how to tackle, the braking, turning, and getting the car rotated around the slow-speed corners was causing him a few issues. And he was very cross. There was quite a sequence of small corners in Aida, and he was losing a second or something crazy to David at the time, and really worked hard with his engineer. He was very disappointed in what happened on Friday, and just pulled it out of the bag on Saturday. And the emotion for him to finally get there and say, right, okay, now we're off, was fantastic. It was an amazingly positive experience for all of us.
I think one of the things I sort of remember about Roland was his smile, and he was so happy being on a Formula One grid. That's what he always wanted to do, and I'm sure there were times in his career he never felt that was going to happen. He went to Japan and back to Europe, and and all of a sudden, bang, he's here in Formula One, and he deserved to be in Formula One. He was a very good driver.
To do his first race, he thought that was one of the hurdles that he wanted to do. He'd got through qualifying and he was actually racing. He was on the grid and this was his dream.
I met him at Tokyo Narita Airport checking in. He was checking into business class and I was checking into economy. And I went up to see him and I just, he was checking in and gave the passport forward, and the Japanese check-in guy said, "Oh, Roland Ratzenberger, F1 driver," and his face lit up. And obviously he was well known in Japan, but the fact that the guy said, F1 driver, really made him smile. So he got out his briefcase, opened it up, and then took out one of his helmet badges that he'd had made up and gave it to the guy, and he was absolutely delighted. So delighted he put him into first class. I was down in economy, unfortunately, but I went to see Roland just before we took off to say, have another chat with him, and just before we were about to take off, the stewardess came up to me and asked me to sit down in my seat, and there was a seat next to Roland, and Roland gave me the nod, and I sat next to him. So I was very lucky to fly back first class to London with Roland.
If we come to the Imola weekend, I've read a quote from Roland on the Friday where he said, the car is good, the car is quick. We've touched on it a little bit already, but he said, there is so much more to come from me. So was the pressure...
Yeah, and that, it's kind of difficult to talk about it without getting all emotional. But yeah, no, that was the case. It was back to the same problems that we'd seen in Aida and the other races where he was losing time in the slow stuff relative to David. The pressure was really, really winding up as we went into the weekend.
It was actually here at Imola. I drove his car on the Friday. They asked me to drive it because he kept complaining of the brakes. So I did like 3 or 4 laps, and I didn't have to do any more because the brakes were horrible. They just, for whatever reason, they'd glazed up or whatever, they stopped working properly. So he got a new set of brakes, and then when he did, his pace was a lot better. He was a lot closer to me, where he should have been, really. And it was literally just before, probably on the Saturday morning, he felt like he'd made this jump, and he felt ready for the next jump. And in qualifying, I'm sure he would have pushed me really close. May have been in front, who knows? But unfortunately, we never got the opportunity to see.
We will never know exactly what happened, but for sure we know that prior to him having the accident, which was as a result of the front wing falling off, he went off the track. We know from the telemetry, he was weaving the car left and right to try and figure it out and feel it, but it was in a moment where there was no time left. I don't know whether he would have had time to come in and change tyres or check the car out, but he just made a decision to give it another go, and that led to what happened.
I guess we never believed that it could happen to anybody. These things just didn't happen in Formula One. And when we saw the car in the middle of the track with Roland slumped there, we thought, oh, he's probably just banged his head, because people didn't get killed in Formula One. And when he didn't move, we thought, this could be quite serious.
What made the whole event really hard was because no one had seen it before, they didn't really know how to deal with it with the TV. So, you know, what happened was the accident happened and then the TV camera's on there, and I can't begin to describe how difficult it is to see a friend of yours having heart massage, you know, on the track. It was a really hard moment.
I think a lot of people like me, you know, who were in Formula One, you know, no one had actually ever died at a circuit before, you know, at a Grand Prix. I mean, I wasn't there in, was it 82 when Paletti died?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't there for that. So I'd gone the whole of my career, you know, and yeah, you know, it hit me badly, really badly, yeah.
I remember barely getting my legs to walk coming off the pit wall after it happened. And yeah, it's just a very, very difficult experience. What I will always remember was when Bernie came in and told us he died, and the three of us cried. It was, you know, that will always stick in my mind. But he was, you know, people can have all sorts of impressions about Bernie, but he, you know, he was as human as I've ever seen him. And he just said, and he wasn't, what did Simtech mean to him with all the things going on? It meant nothing to him, but he just said, Nick, I think you should race.
Roland would have wanted it, come on. You know, he would have said, yeah, guys, you know, you carry on. And we wanted to know what had happened to the car. That was the main thing. Or was it driver error? Did something happen to the car? Once we knew that we looked at the telemetry, we knew he'd hit the curb, it had dislodged the front wing, the wing had gone under. We knew that we could beef up everything on the car and make it safe for David. Once we knew that, we all said, yeah, we've got a race. And David said the same thing, yeah.
With Roland dying on the Saturday, and then Ayrton dying on the Sunday, a lot of focus shifted away from Roland, understandably so. It's just the way it was going to be. So I guess Roland, in some ways, there's been a fight to keep him in people's awareness that, you know, he was here, he was a Grand Prix driver, he was a person, he was living the dream, and it got taken away from him.
Roland shouldn't be forgotten. You know, he embodied everything that was great about passionate drivers. You know, Formula One, you know, is about the drivers first and foremost. And, you know, he deserved his place there. He had, you know, he brought something to the place. He brought something to our team. You know, his determination and dedication to achieving his ultimate dream was amazing. And whilst it ultimately cost him his life, I'm just really proud that you know, we gave him the chance to achieve his dream and drive in Formula One and race and get to a race. It wouldn't have been as complete a story, if you can call what happened to him complete, if it hadn't have been for Aida. Aida, and the fact that he made it, and the fact that we beat the other team and he made that race, gives me a tiny bit of completion over that story, and he shouldn't be forgotten.
For me, he was the model racing driver. You know, he was good looking, he was fit, he was fast. He could have had a great career in Formula One.
It's what he's always wanted to do, and he was doing it. It was just brilliant for him, and I'm so pleased that he achieved his goal. And yeah, he'd made it. He was racing, doing what he's always wanted to do. So good on him, yeah. All right, mate. Yeah.